Good morning and welcome to the Rick Helps Real Estate Show with our special guest, Dan Frio. Good morning, Dan.
Top of the morning to you, Buster.
Are you staying warm out there in beautiful
Yeah.
Chicago?
We went downtown last night, and it is I live in the suburbs, so I live probably 45 minutes from the city. We went downtown last night for dinner just for kicks. It's freezing. I mean, it is freezing cold. We got about a foot of snow the other day, and the other day also was wind chill was like -30. So I envy you guys out there.
Well, here in Arizona, just officially let you know our winter is over. We had 1 week where we had we had freezing temps, and that's in the rearview mirror. That's the way our winters go here. You get up to almost the Super Bowl, and it's, we might get one more frost, but as a rule, our winter's over. I'll take that. So one of the things I'm seeing here that I wanted to share with the group is, I thought January and February would kind of just muddle along, and no spikes either way in our sales volume or listings. And because, nothing really had changed that much. And I was doing this at the backdrop of a lot of agents out there saying, you better get out there now because it's going to get real brisk because we're going to have 4 to 6 rate cuts and people are going to be knocking the doors down to get a house, which I just don't agree with that scenario. Number one, probably because I just don't want to see that happen.
Yeah.
I don't want to see bidding wars again. But check this out, because this is kind of a leading indicator. And I'll read this out loud for people that are just listening rather than viewing. But this is a contract ratio. It's a measurement of you listed your house and what's the ratio between the number of listings out there and the number that went under contract. And because a lot of the data that we look at now, Dan, shows like December sales stuff, and that doesn't mean anything. I walk away from it. But it doesn't do any good to draw a red line if you draw it through the number you want to look at. But these are Apache Junction, which is east of Phoenix. Their contract ratio is up 64% in 2 weeks. Anthem's up 47, Arizona City 47. They're south of Phoenix. Gilbert 46%, Sun Lakes up 45%. Now, that makes sense because it's a retirement community and people start showing up to snowbirds and stuff. But Chandler 43%, Tempe 31, Peoria 31, Gold Canyon 30. That's like a leading indicator that shows that the activity is really picking up. And
so what do you attribute in that to?
I can't really put my finger on it except for the fact that people have been sitting out so long and that there's a lot of leases coming due. So I think you've got a percentage of buyers out there, not a large percentage, but enough that said, well, I've got a choice now. Am I going to re-up for another year with my lease, or am I going to go ahead and pull the trigger? So there may be some of that. And then there are some that just say, well, the rates aren't too bad. Let me go ahead and start shopping and see what I come up with before rates come down. Because I think the general public is convinced that rates are going to come flying down later in the year and the frenzy is going to start. So maybe there's some of that, but our inventory is also much different than last year. And we're sitting here at 14,519 on this chart. Now you can see down below on my ticker, I've got today we're at 15,765. So that's up about 150, 200 from last week. But we're going up where last year we were going down, the year before we were going down. And of course, 2020 and 2021 don't count at all. We were down at 5,000. It seems odd to look back at that. Remember, we had 5,000 listings out there and we were selling them at the rate of 4,400 a week. So that was pretty rough. But here's the really big sign of what I want to call seller confidence or seller exuberance. Look at this. Average list price per square foot has gone from $368 2 weeks ago per square foot to $378 per square foot.
Eesh.
We ended the year at $364. This tells you sellers are like, okay, I'm seeing my neighbors selling their house. This looks like it's going to be good. I'm going to go ahead and list, and I'm going to go ahead and start high. Now, personally, I think a lot of sellers are coming in too hot too soon. And this is usually when you get the comments that go, well, sellers are being greedy. Prices would just come down if sellers weren't greedy. Well, prices are dictated by what people are willing to purchase it for. I mean, I want to sell my truck for 50 grand. I really do. And I thought here next year going, Dan, I'm holding out. I'm still asking 50 grand. So yeah, I can be greedy that way, but it's not going to show up in the sales numbers. So you have to look at real estate the same way, don't you?
Yeah. Well, that's what you see a lot of people coming, they're posting all this stuff. Look at all the price drops. Everybody in their look, see the people are my wife and I actually spoke last year or the year before when things were nuts. I'm like, if we put our house up for, it was like 200,000 more than it should be worth. I'm like, and if somebody takes it, you willing to move? And she's like, no. So I was going to put my house on the market for like $1 million plus and just see if I had any takers, because it was crazy. So then, now you still have people sitting on the sidelines, and everybody thinks their house is worth more than it is. I hate to say it that way. We all think our house is worth more than it is. So are a lot of the pullbacks, this is where I kind of don't really know the answer to. Do you think a lot of the pullbacks or price drops, is it because the sellers were too exuberant? They're like, hey, I'll throw this on the market, and if it sells, kudos. If it does,
we touched on it. We touched on our roundtable last week because somebody made the comment about your all these price cuts are indications of the market's getting soft. And I know the price cuts are because people are always this optimistic in January, and they always come out hot. And if you look at our price cuts now, you can see we're up here to 1,700. So it's people that said, well, those are usually December numbers. I'm going to price here. I hear the market's good. I was talking to my neighbor, so I'm going to come up. And I give the example of that one of the crash bros actually showed these numbers and said, he was asking 840. Now he dropped it to 640. So now that the market's crashing. Well, I comped the house. Somehow somebody found out the address. The comp was 620. So the house was never worth 820. Yeah. And so I'm seeing a lot of that in these price reductions. And when you look at it, these are price reductions. So they're not that far out of line. This is the silly season, 2020-21. Now, last year, I think, we almost hit a record in price cuts because people panicked when rates went up. But they said, I know I have this much equity in my home. I want to get it now. So I'm going to price it that way. And then they pulled back. But then they got out. And so this is listing success rate on a chart by price here. And for people that are listening that aren't able to see this, if you look at 400 to 500,000, our listing success rate has gone from 75% to 76.2, and from 500 to 600, 71% to 74%. The listing success rate for over 2 million has really popped down. Look at this, 49.6% to 61.6%. So it's if you're wanting to list and you're seeing these kind of numbers, then you've got some catalyst there to say, well, let me give it a shot. As long as you're willing to adjust.
Right. Yeah. Are you seeing so the numbers that you're going over for especially people on my channel, are you seeing this, or I guess I'll ask the question, have you done this kind of on a national level, just broadly, or you focused mostly, and I don't blame you if you did, you focused mainly in like your territory? Are you seeing this nationally as well, kind of, or not really?
I've glanced over it nationally. Okay. I haven't done a deep dive like here, but I think it's safe to say we're seeing this all over the country.
Okay. We're seeing, we're getting a lot of activity in like Pennsylvania, Ohio, in those areas. And you should see some of the houses that'll come in. I mean, they're awesome. And if you put that same house kind of, I won't say anywhere in the country, you put it in Texas or Arizona or whatever, I mean, these things would be multi-gazillion, prices. I see I just got a file in last week for a house in Miami. and it was like 900,000. And God bless them. And I'm not disrespecting this, but it's like a shoebox. It's this tiny little thing and whatever, but it's all relative of where you live. So I was just wondering, because when you look at the national level, you could see, I don't really break down each state. I just basically look at if somebody wants a specific territory, I'll try to help them do some research. One great tool that's out there right now, I just found not too long ago, was Altos Research.
Yeah.
I'm actually trying to get them on a live stream, and their data is fantastic. I mean, it is what it is. It tells you can plug in your zip code, and it tells you specifically all the information that you provided. It gives you inventory, square footage, all this other stuff. And I was on a live event with him. I wasn't with him, but I watched a live event from them last week. And if you look at that data, and that you could pick anywhere in the whole country and plug that in, he was basically saying, there's no catalyst. There's nothing in the basically the cards right now that would cause the housing market to explode again, in the feeding frenzy, nor to crash. So he's basically predicting kind of like what I'm saying, and I think a lot of people are on this bandwagon, or well, some people are, is we're probably going to have a completely flat market once again, because the uncertainty with rates, they're going to come down. When are they going to come down? We really don't know. I'm saying, mid-year, they'll start to pivot a little bit. I don't think, March, I don't think the Federal Reserve is going to have enough data to basically pull down rates in March. But one of the biggest things is I watch Goldsby. He sits on the Federal Reserve. He's the Chicago person on the Federal Reserve. So I tend to watch him. And he's like, you're going to see inflation drop, probably the biggest drop ever, the biggest adjustment ever in the history of inflation. We were at 9% not too long ago. And he said, we're down to 3 now. We're going to get in the 2s here soon. So we went from 9 to, back in the 2s within, basically a year and a half. That's the fastest ever. So he's predicting, they're going to most likely start to cut rates mid-year. And now the diversity is, how much are they going to cut rates? I'm saying they're going to cut them about 0.75% to maybe 1% in 2024, but everybody's saying the same thing. So they're going to cut. It basically comes down to when, and then I think once that does happen, like we had a feeding frenzy from October to, the 1st of December, rates went from 8 to 6.5. Our pipeline just exploded because people were like, okay, I think the Federal Reserve is going to do this. And it was, we'll probably have a record January, believe it or not. And I was sitting here thinking, we're going to be twiddling our thumbs through January because just people don't know, what's going to go on the prices.
Yeah, I'm surprised by the volume as well. I mean, I don't have, we're not beating the doors down too fast. I mean, if I look at my 7-day moving average here, Dan, you can see I got a blue line here, which is new listings, has actually flatlined. Yet while new contracts continue to climb, and the new contracts are sitting at 2897, almost 2900, and we were at 1700 in the month of December.
Well, you're filling that gap quite a bit. I mean, if you look back to the left, right in the middle of the screen, there's a pretty big gap there. Then as you move over, everything, look at the equilibrium that you have right at the end of your chart where the biggest drop comes in. You basically had the same amount of house inventory as you have contracts coming in. And then you're going to have bidding wars again.
And I'm glad you talked about that, because Ralph here's got a comment that says, listed my house in March of 2023, removed it in December due to lack of interest, and now gearing up to relist. Despite the wait, the price was never the issue. I believe the right buyer. So I'm going to push back on price was never the issue. If you were asking 200,000 for it, it'd sell. So price is always the issue. But in March, you were hitting that panic period where everybody was listing from January to March. That was the panic where everybody got out. We had rate shock. Rates were way up there. So you were getting ignored because of price, Ralph, because of the price of the payment. And so you're saying now it just has, the first buyer just hasn't come along yet, hoping once rate come down, the perfect buyer might emerge. I hear that a lot. It just takes one buyer, and it's true. I'm waiting for that one buyer. But let's be honest, though. If your house is on the market, it's been on the market for a long time, nobody's looking at it. It's price.
Yeah,
and it's always price. And I always tell people, let's mark your house to $200,000. You think it'll sell? Yeah, in an hour. Well, then it's price. It if you're at the comps and it's not selling, then it's if it's not price, then it's location and it's condition. But in your area there, Ralph, I don't know your area, but in the month that you listed, boy, nothing was moving. So it wasn't your fault.
Yeah.
You tried at a time when just nothing was moving. Now, it looks like things are probably would go your way now, and it's not a bad time to relist. So I would look at that, but I'd be very analytical about your pricing. Don't price above the market. If you price at the market, then I think you'll be okay. Running at altitude, one of our favorite viewers here said, went through a few miles in Eastmark off the 202, and the builder was offering 60,000 off. Oh, Ralph's in Greenville, South Carolina. That sounds like a fun area. 60K off. Builders, what do you think of that, Dan? I mean, when you see builders offering a discount, Eastmark is a development here that's in East Mesa. It's really huge. Do you think that's in lieu of, because they've been giving a lot of incentives, they're buying the rate down to 4.9. Do you think builders are offering big discounts now because they have too much inventory and they're about to get hurt?
What's the price point of that area? Do you know?
I think Eastmark's probably running about 5.25, 550. I can kind of take a look.
The reason why I asked is you have a lot of raw materials that have really plummeted in price. So if you look at, these homes, is the builder actually taking a haircut? Did the builder might have had huge profit margins in there, because you got to watch on my channel on a daily basis. All we basically talk about is the economics, supply, demand. Those are some big houses. Okay. So here's my point on this is, you have things such as gasoline, how all this stuff moves around the country. Those are pretty fantastic. $400,000 for, those are nice homes.
3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 1,700.
Yeah. So you have a lot of raw materials dropping. So it might be the same way. The builders, they kept jacking up the prices because they could. People would just keep the FOMO. People, didn't matter what, they're buying this stuff. And then they had that lull last year because rates spiked. So now that they have these homes, but are they hurting? Are they going out of business? Do you see any builders, folding up, going bankruptcy, things like that? You don't. So then you look and see how can they afford this price cut? So let's think of a couple different reasons. One, they had a huge profit margin built in. That could be, that might not be the case. But then you see things like lumber. Lumber was, I think it was like $1,600. I don't know how they measure it, but I measure it and just say, let's say a bundle. So you had lumber at $1,600 a bundle. Then it went down to like $500. So that's, 2/3 of a drop. Then you have fuel. You have fuel from, think of what gasoline does. It's how you bulldoze this stuff. It's how you get products back and forth. It's how you do this, supply chain issues and everything. So now you have a lot of that stuff worked out. So even you might not think about it, the supply chain issue, the shipping rates. I follow shipping rates, believe it or not. And shipping rates were out the roof last year. I mean, way out the roof. I watch a lot of shippers. I own stock in those. That's why I do. So you have shipping costs that were crazy high. You had all raw materials and everything that were really high, as well as fuel. Well, now you have gasoline. Oil was $90, almost $100 a barrel. Now it's $70. You have that, like I said, with lumber, you have that down. You have wage appreciation, but it's only like 5%. So you have most of your raw materials and such are coming down dramatically. So that can attribute to a lot of that. 60,000 might seem like a ton, but it depends on what house you're looking at, and so forth. So it might be 10%, of a drop.
So what it sounds like is in what you're illustrating here is that, the price coming down, but they're just trying to maintain their same profit margins and yet remain competitive. So
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Because otherwise, if they sat there and said, well, look, our costs have gone way down. Let's go ahead and just hold this price and really rake in the cash. There's going to be a builder down the street going, well, let's just lower ours to our current profit margins, and we'll beat the heck out of these
Yeah.
guys in Eastmark.
Yeah. So those are it. I don't know the answer, but those are the things I'm thinking about. Because the builders, you just saw there's not an way excess of inventory. So it wasn't they're doing price cuts to basically dump their products. That builder might be doing just that. They might have way too
Yeah.
many homes. So it basically comes down to it. You'd like to sit there and actually talk to the builder to say, but they're never going to tell you the truth. But you'd really like to know, are they a publicly traded builder? If they are, you can look at their sales, their return on investments, their profit margins, things like that. And a lot of builders, I mean, their profit margins are still and their stocks are holding steady. Last week, I think there was a little bit of a backlash there, but you don't see a lot of, back in 2008, 2010, when builders were going belly up, on a daily basis, and you don't see that in today's market. So,
I follow real estate stocks too, but it's really a mess right now because of this $1.8 billion judgment that came
lawsuit.
out of that lawsuit.
Yeah.
And so what I've noticed is the small, like there's a company out there called Real, and they're a relatively small but new brokerage, and nobody's suing them. And their stock's doing great, but it started out like $1.35, and it's projected to hit like 375. It's up at $2.50. EXP has been named in that stupid lawsuit,
Really?
and so theirs is down. And I don't get that lawsuit. I mean, I could talk an hour. Like, I'm an independent agent with EXP. I charge any commission I want. It's not fixed. They don't tell me. They don't even tell me what I should try to get. Why are you suing us? It just makes no sense, 0 cents at all. And yet everybody's jumping on the bandwagon. And Ralph Ayer's got a follow-up. He says, do not agree that the surge holiday spending do you not agree the surge in holiday spending played a significant role in sustaining a robust economy, which, albeit contributing a bit, also influenced the inflation numbers? I believe once that effect wears off, we might see a decline in the numbers. People are still buying, the consumer is still consuming, but a lot of the CPI was driven by shelter costs, which was rent and home purchases. I also personally think that when you look at a chart of federal spending, I think there's another freight train coming of higher rates, because they in Q3 of last year, our federal spending went way up again. And so, that takes a year, right, to kind of circulate through the system.
Yeah.
So
that's why on my channel, I talk about a lot of the deficit, and I point out, and I get a lot of backlash from this. I point out the student loan forgiveness program. It's going to cost, I think, $600 billion of money we already don't have. And then are you going to forgive student loan debt forever? Are you going to go backwards? Or are you just going to do it this year because it's an election year? So, not pointing any fingers, but it's like,
you're not supposed to do it anyway because the Supreme Court said no, but that's okay. That's a whole nother
I put 3 kids through college, spent probably $500,000, and I'd love to get that deferred and a check back from that. And so people say, oh, so now you didn't get it, so now you don't want anybody else to get it. That's not the point. Are you fixing the cause and effect of this? Are you going to the universities and saying, hey guys, why don't you approve all these student loans? And then maybe after the fact, if these kids can't get jobs afterwards, allow them to bankrupt this debt. And then the college, will start paying repercussions of this.
Yeah. No. Why don't you, the college, have a P&L?
Right. And you see a lot of these sports, the sports venues, ESPN just paid, I think, all the Big Ten colleges like $1 billion in monies. Where's that money go? You could basically, with that much money, you don't need to build a new stadium every 3 years and so forth. Well, reduce your cost of tuition. That doesn't happen. So it's like it's a shame. But
I went up to Flagstaff, which is north, where that is, north of Phoenix, and I went to the college up there and touring with the couple of young ladies that were going to go to school there with their brother-in-law, and they had heated sidewalks, melts
Oh,
of snow. God forgive,
it's a country club.
The gym was unbelievably nice. The laundromat, they have phone apps to where you can sit in your dorm and it tells you when there's a dryer available. I go, no wonder college is so expensive.
Yeah. I lived in a trailer, a single wide trailer when I went to college because my parents said, we'll pay for college, but that's it. So I could afford, I worked part-time in a grocery store to pay my rent and have spending money. And I lived in a single wide trailer while I was in college. Just that's what you did. I didn't have, a condo, on the water with a hot tub in my place and everything else. And that's why it was, $3,000 a year for college. But now it's like you go to these places and it's like, going to Sandals Resort in the Bahamas. It's nuts. But yeah, I did the same thing. I never realized how nice they were until my kids went to college. And this is again 10 years ago. But it's I can't imagine where they've gone since my kids got out of school. So, but we're getting off topic, I guess.
Well, but it's all part of that, spending. Okay, so let's say, despite all of the agree, disagree, I don't think they should be able to just forgive the debt. Will that free up buyers? I mean, because they're only forgiving the government debt, but there's a lot of private loans that went out there as well. So does that loosen the buyer pool at all, in your opinion?
Rick, you'd be amazed if you sat at my desk for a week. You'd be amazed of the student loan debt. I kid you not. You might have, and this isn't exaggerating. You could probably say most 50% of our borrowers have probably at least 1 to 2 pages of student loan debt on their credit. You're talking pages, and there's 5, 6, 7 loans, 8 loans on each page. So it's not uncommon for people to have, 15, 20 student loan accounts. And that's why I emphasize this a lot. And I'm not picking on students or people with student loan debt. I'm still paying a couple of these things for about another year on my kids. But it's out there and it's running rampant. So when the government comes in and forgives this stuff, you now free up that money on the consumer side. But then on the other side of the fence, everybody's getting upset because rates are so high. If you really knew how rates worked and all this stuff works behind the scenes, it's basically the bond market is how mortgage rates work and all this other stuff. So when the federal government doesn't have enough money, what they have to do is they don't print money. They go out there and create treasury bonds. It's a bond that trades on Wall Street. Now that bond's competing against corporate bonds and mortgage bonds. So like anything, if you throw so much of something out in the market and you have too much of it, the prices on that product are going to go down. That's like we see on housing. You have too many houses, what happens? That price drops. Well, if you have way too many bonds in the market for investors to choose from, they have all these options now. The prices of bonds are going to go down. And what happens when prices go down, yields or rates go up. So that's the area where I'm like, yes, the federal government's going to, they're going to start, or the Federal Reserve's going to start cutting rates. They're going to cut the federal funds rate. But how many bonds are in the market that will even with the Federal Reserve reducing rates, will they actually reduce mortgage rates? Because again, it's a bond that trades on Wall Street. It's not controlled by the Fed. It's not controlled by the banks. It's basically a bond on Wall Street. So if you look through that, it's like, okay, we're having, the government debt. That's why I monitor it as well. I mean, it is going crazy. So you have all this stuff out there and it's going to drive the prices and the yields up. And that's why you haven't really seen mortgage rates do anything in the last 2-3 weeks, because now people are starting to focus in on the government spending. And that's what you're going to see. So it's hard to really predict what's going to happen with interest rates on mortgages, because you look at what the government's doing on this overspending. That's how it all plays a role in this. So, if you're out there, check out my channel on a daily basis. We just talk economics for about 5, 6, 7 minutes a day, hopefully educating you guys on this stuff.
Yeah, it's really helpful. I encourage people to go there because that's where I go to get my stuff too. So around VA loans, does salary pay satisfied an income requirement? time period instead of the 2 income if you're on an hourly pay? I have to digest that question for a moment.
As long as you've had a job, I think, well, yeah, if you have a steady salary, yes, that works. And if you're thinking about, have you been on the job 2 years or long enough or whatever, as long as you don't have any big job gaps, 2-3 months gaps, and you've been employed in the same line of work for 2 years or more, you should be fine. And you can reach out to me if you're on my channel. You can reach out the description down below. If not, you can give us a call, give you my information. I'll shout it out there. So if you guys would like to reach out to us or me at the Frio team, just give us a call at 844-775-5626.
Yeah, and if you're watching this on my channel, because we're simulcasting on both channels, there's a link down below to talk about loans. So give that a shout. The thing I want to encourage people too, because I was watching a football game yesterday, and a friend of mine, he goes, "So how's real estate, man? I hear the Fed's really going to cut rates next year." And I said, "That's an interesting comment." I said, "People are hearing that," and I said, "We don't know." And so, if you're in the market, if you're talking about buying, you're talking about selling, and interest rates are important to you in your buying decision. And if you're thinking of selling and you want to know if it's a busy market or a slow market, dive into the numbers so that you're not sucked in by your next door neighbor that tells you how the market is.
Yeah. Do your own research.
Do your own research, or that next YouTuber that says, look, I'm a YouTuber. I'm sharing numbers. Okay. I spit out an opinion from time to time, but you can throw that out the window. But it's the numbers are what the numbers are. We just shared some inventory numbers, some contract ratios. Those are true numbers, and you can look it up for your neighborhood and see what's going on. I know I'm kind of consulting for a young man that's going through a difficult time, and they'll split up, and he's got forces against him trying to accept a settlement on his girlfriend buying out his half of the house, and they're shooting him ridiculous numbers. And he goes, "What do you think of these?" And I said, I don't want to get in the middle of this. Let me just tell you the real numbers. Here's what you can get for they told him settlement charges were going to be $15,000, that he can count on giving $5,000 in closing cost assistance and $20,000 in a rate buy down. Well, no. So it's we got a good question here. Why are rates going up? Are we headed for 8 again?
I actually put that on a thumbnail the other day, and it got attention. So my apologies, but yeah, rates are going up. That video probably got double or triple the views I usually get. So that I was just kind of doing some tests there. They shouldn't. Okay. Some of the numbers that came in recently, we had the inflation numbers they kept plummeting and plummeting and plummeting. And then all of a sudden they just stagnated. You probably hear all the channels saying they're starting to get really sticky. Well, the biggest sticky part right now, the inflation, the major inflation numbers, is housing data. And again, I watch Goldsby. He's the federal chair that sits for the Chicago Fed. And there was an interview just this morning that I was watching. And he discussed a lot about this and said, yes, you're going to see the housing inflation numbers starting to come down, ratchet down. He agrees with all that. You're going to see inflation come probably in the 2s here shortly. But the problem is what we were talking about just now is the debt. Honestly, as a kid, I never gave a shit about the national debt. You'd hear my parents, they're spending this. You go on the news, you go on all this other stuff. I'm like, who cares?
I'm going outside.
All of a sudden, you really start doing this for a living, and then you understand, all the pieces of this puzzle. And guys, the national spending, everything isn't free. It gets paid for somehow. And the government doesn't have any money anyways. We're 34 trillion now in debt. So all they do is just keep getting, an extension on their credit card. You know, they keep that's the next huge debate that's coming up right now. Are they going to shut down the government because they don't want to keep just opening up that credit card, or is the government going to say, okay, we need to fix some other things? So, you know, that's what's happening right now. So that's why you're not really seeing mortgage rates come down and down and down. And also the economic data for the inflation has basically just stopped. We went from 9 to like 3.1 or whatever analysis you would look at. It's 3.1 or 3.3 on the inflation data, and it just stopped. So the only data we have this week coming out is the PCE. That's basically the inflation levels that's the most concerning number that the Federal Reserve watches, and that's coming out on Friday. Up until then, there's really no data. So we're basically at a data, you know, we had data overload at the end of 2023. And right now in January of 2024, there's really no data. So the markets are just holding steady, and you're seeing rates kind of trickle up a little bit one day and trickle down a little bit one day. If you remember go back to last October, between October and November, rates went from 8 to 6.5. Huge, biggest drop I've ever seen in my whole life. So now you have that data. The data has to keep coming in to support that, and we just don't have the data right now. So you're going to see basically rates stagnant, especially this week. They should be stagnant all week until that inflation number on the PCE number comes out on Friday, and then that will be a market mover one way or another.
That will. I'm looking forward to seeing what that is. We got Jorge. Welcome, Jorge. Is it true the month's supply in Phoenix is the highest since 2016 for this time of year? Well, here's where we're at. We are at days of inventory, January 13th, 76.17. So that's 2.5 months. And in 2016, we were at days of inventory of 96. So we were at 3 months. So I would say, no, that number's not true. It's getting closer, but it's not true. So,
Rick, can I share one of my
screens? Depends on the part of 216 too, Jorge. So if you get down to the latter part of 216, like November of 216, October, then it's just about a tie, 77 to 77. But
Rick, can I share a screen?
Yes.
Is that possible? Okay. Let me do I don't know if it's going to blank me out or just pop up. So I'll try this right here.
Pop up. No.
Oh. I don't know if you have to do that.
It's right there, buddy.
Okay. So this is just so you guys understand how rates work. Okay. Interest rates are actually tied to this right here. Okay. It's not the Federal Reserve. It's not the banks. It's not anybody. This is right here that you're seeing. I'm highlighting right there. It's MBSs. So MBS means mortgage-backed security. It's a bond that trades on Wall Street. Okay. Here's what's going on right now. All you need to know is right through here. This is the price of the bond. The price is 101.06. It's up 0.08. Okay. So here's what you've seen over the last 2 months. All right. So bond yields were down there. You can see November right through here, right here. As the price of this bond goes up, rates come down. Let me just do a little example of this just to make it clear for everybody. Let's just say, for example, let me show you how when the price goes up, rates come down. All right. So a mortgage, this MBS right here, it's a bond. So let's say the bond has a face value of $100. Okay. So meaning when I turn in my bond, you're going to give me $100 back. Okay. So let's say today I give you $50. $50. I give you $50. You give me the bond. Then next year the bond comes due. I give you my bond back and you give me $100 back. So I gave you $50. In return, I got $100. What was my yield? I doubled my money. My yield was 100%. So that means up through here, the yield would be 100%. So now let's do this. Let's drive up the price so I can prove a point. So now let's drive up that price to $100 just to make it simple. So now I give you $100 for that $100 bond. You give me the bond. Okay, so now I'm sitting on the bond. Next year, the bond comes due. I give you my bond back. You give me my $100 back. So now it's my yield for the higher price. I give you $100, you give me $100 back. My yield is 0. So my yield at $50 was 100%. My yield at $100 is 0%. See, as the price goes up, the yield comes down. This is what's happened in the mortgage bond market since basically the end of October. You had a huge rally in the market. So think of this also as a stock. If this stock was up so much, you'd probably sell it. You'd be like, okay, I'm going to take some of my profits. Well, that's what also bond traders are doing. They're actually selling bonds. So that this is where we study. I try to focus in on this every day, all day, to figure out what's going to happen with this bond. And the economic news you can see right over through here. There's no news today, but if you look this week, it's a slew of data. And then you go down through here. What I was saying is we have the PCE, which is right through here. This is the number one inflation monitor that the Federal Reserve monitors. So on Friday morning, it's going to come out, and this will be a market mover. No matter if it's good, bad, indifferent, this will change the markets. So that's a kind of a brief little description on how all this stuff works behind the scenes. So it's not the Federal Reserve.
If I can add to that. So as a mortgage broker, you're watching these rates, you know that the PCE is coming out on Friday. So you've got some loans that have to make a decision whether or not they're going to lock or not.
Yeah.
And so you're tracking that so that you can, if you're seeing some data that says, no, we could see an increase by Friday, you might lock them versus the call-in centers and the loans that you get online that you go, nobody's tracking that. They just quoted you a rate and you'll find out your fee later.
Yeah. Yeah. In essence, yes.
So when if you're out there looking for a mortgage, I mean, get somebody. And I thought that you guys, you and Pat did an excellent job this week. It said that, don't shop for rates, find somebody who can shop for rates for you.
Yeah. And that's what we do. We're set up with, I think we have 63 lenders we work with, as well as our current bank. And that's what we do for people. Our whole day is basically, if one bank got you approved, I can get you approved. We all use the same systems to get you approved. Now, who's going to help you with the best rate, monitoring rates and fees and all that stuff. And that's basically what we do. My main goal, though, is I just want people educated on why this is taking place. Why are home prices, when people say they're going to crash, well, why? And the data they provide you a lot of times just, it doesn't pass the smell test. It just doesn't make sense. And then when you try to debate with them, they get angry at you. And it's like, all I want to do is, help you understand what's going on. And maybe you guys can help me understand some of the things I might be missing, so that's why we come on here on a daily basis, just giving you the news, the data, everything else to help you guys make the decision, not us.
Yeah. Bryce here's got a good comment. He got a really good deal on a home down in Tucson. He said, the other offers I made were rejected because they were confident in a sale at the price. Not a single house that rejected me has sold in the last 45 days. If I write an offer and they reject, I get right on the phone to that agent. No. Counter. An offer is an invitation to negotiate. Don't reject it. Right. Well, my client's offended. No, it's just math. Let's talk. Right. Let's see, maybe we can meet somewhere. I don't know. What's the tolerance for your seller? Rejections, I think, are just an emotional reaction. Reject it. And so I'm going to have a video. It'd be out this week or next week. Everybody wants to get that good price, right? Well, how do you write lower offers? The only way you're really going to get a lower offer accepted is if you're looking at several houses. If you see one house and you want that and you want it at a lower offer price, they're asking this, I want that. Nobody wants to pay retail right now. Doesn't matter. That house could be worth $500,000. They list it for $400,000. People want it for $375,000. So that's just the mentality that's out there right now. I don't blame them, but you're not going to get it. Right. But I had a comment from, actually got an email from a guy that says, I can't find an agent that'll write a low offer for me. They all tell me I won't get it. I said, well, I can't tell you that you will get it, but I can tell you that there's nothing wrong with writing a low offer. But if you're concentrating on one particular house, you may not get it. They may be dug in like a tick. So right. The only thing that solves that is time. Like he says, all those houses that rejected are still in the market. The last 45 days are still there. They'll come down. They just didn't come down in your window. But so I think, buying a house and getting an offer is not just, somebody made a comment, I'm going to come over there. I want everything 15% off of retail. So you're really going to have to work for it. it's not that much work. I'm just going to write an offer, and the agent's going to call me and say, I don't like your offer. And I can say, okay, well, what do we got to do here? But I'll write, I won't write ridiculous offers. It's just a waste of time.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you and say, you don't stand a prayer on this one. However, and I give an example of the one down at Open Door down in Maricopa. Great client. Call goes, Rick, they're grossly overpriced. I want to write them an obnoxious offer. Will you try? Sure. And they called and go, whoo, we're way off. I said, well, I figured that. So, but it needs a lot of work. So let me know. And they went under contract. And I said, well, stay in touch. When it falls out, we'll come back. She goes, what makes you think it's going to fall out? I said, the inspection period. Well, it fell out. So we wrote them another offer. Somebody else outbid us. It fell out 3 times. 6 months later, we got the house.
Sweet.
6 months. This buyer was like, I'm patient. I want the house, but not at their price. So.
Got it.
Yeah,
we have one of those. We just had one of those the other day, and I think it might have been almost the same time frame. I got into actually one of the agents called me and ripped me. I mean, words that I was like, are you serious?
Ripped you?
And we just went at it. And I was just like, and I think we got finally that house under contract on Thursday or Friday. And this week they've been going back and forth for like 6 months.
Yeah, but you didn't set the offer price.
Oh no, it was I won't go there.
Yeah, I'm in one right now, and it's just a small condo, and I can't. It's like pulling teeth. I ended up sending a text message to the agent, and I said, "Who do I have to beat up to get a loan status update for this place?"
Yeah,
it's not that tough. Supposed to get them every Friday, and then now they sent us the inspection report, so I sent a text to them and an email, and I said, "Hey, here's what we're proposing. What do you think?" Now, look, I get an email. I get it right here, don't you?
Yeah.
You see it. And so I answer it. Yeah. So why do you take 2 days? Nobody's that busy, Dan.
Yeah. The tough thing on our end is I'll have realtors. I never knew this. The average 50% of realtors have sold one home or less in 2023.
Yeah. No, I thought we were all rich.
Yeah. The frustrating thing is when I get, a call, email, and text from the selling agent, a call, email, and text from the buying agent, a call, email, and text from the attorney, seller's attorney, a call, email, and we try to keep these guys updated. But if you don't give that exact information that they want to hear, it starts all over again the next morning. It's like, guys, I don't know. Well, here's what we're waiting for from the borrower. Then it's got to get cleared. Then I got to get your CTC, send out your CD, and all this other stuff. All you guys calling and texting me every 15 minutes doesn't help me push these things along.
No, you've got a whole different animal than I do.
Yeah. So that's what gets frustrating on my side is it's like, okay, go out and help somebody else buy a house, and a lot of times I'm transparent with most people on the borrower situation, what's taking us so long. We have people that quit their jobs, 2 weeks into the contract and have a new job. Now we have to get all new pay stubs verification, things like that. Now there are times where it's like we just dropped the ball. We might have dropped the ball on ordering an appraisal on a Wednesday and we realized it Thursday, Friday, things like that. But most of the time it's, there's reasons behind, why things are taking so long. But if at least if the person would listen to the reasoning behind it, and I'm like you guys, the buyers and sellers, the buyer wants this house. You want to sell the house because that's your living. Well, you guys got to understand too, on the lending side, it's my living too. I don't have a $200,000 salary. I make all my money when your loan closes. So there is no reason why I don't want the loan to close. We're trying everything possible to do that, make this happen. So it's like, oh, you guys just don't want to do this deal. I'm like, then why would I take your phone call 20 times a day?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I got other better things to do in my life. So we're all in this together. Man. That's why I like working with a team, where we're all on the same page.
Yeah. That's it. Mark here says, I took the moment to reiterate how important it was to have somebody represent you throughout this journey. I explained to my client how we could easily offer 15 to 20,000 over asking price, and probably it stopped there. Maybe it's cooking. So
you can offer that, but then you're hoping that the appraisal doesn't come in, and then you can renegotiate and all this other stuff. Or, if the appraisal does come in on point, you're like, oh boy, I can't afford that payment. So those things happen as well.
yeah,
You try to go in.
There's still a disconnect between what buyers think the market is and sellers think the market is. It looks to me, based on the data that I just showed at the beginning, that sellers have a more optimistic outlook on our market right now than buyers do. Now, buyers, I get, are skittish because, we're hitting this affordability wall, but sellers are confident that our market's picking up based on the new asking prices, which may be too high. We'll see how they come back down. Mark follows up. Have our offer accepted at the comps and the appraisal will not check out. It's good and positive for value, more professional real estate. Yeah, it's an interesting business, isn't it, my friends? So,
yeah.
Well, Dan, I'm gonna let you go and enjoy that nice weather out there. Maybe put on some shorts, go for a walk. Send photos. So
I'll send
for
you
those
photos.
that don't know, Dan lives in Chicago. So
me and my Speedo in 2 feet of snow. That'll be exciting.
Hey, quick one here. Did you watch the Detroit Lions yesterday?
I didn't. We were downtown. There was a huge event for my family last night downtown. I won't say what it is, but we were proud of one of my sons. I'll leave it at that. And I missed all the football games yesterday, but it was awesome for, the event that took place.
The reason I bring it up is before the game, a couple days before the game, this reporter was asking the Ravens coach, about the weather. She goes, how do you prepare for the weather? Because, as we all know, it's certainly not as cold as it was last week, but, it's only supposed to be 13 degrees. And he's just not even changing his facial expressions. And she goes, what steps are you taking to prepare for the weather? And he goes, you do know we play indoors, right? And he goes, so, it takes us about 20 seconds to go from the bus inside. So I think we're ready for that. I mean, he didn't bust your chops. He just very matter of fact.
That's awesome.
That's great. I keep replaying it. It's hilarious.
My one son played college football, and he went to James Madison University. They actually lost in a bowl game this year, but I never knew this trick. They would put Vaseline all over them, and they'd stay warm.
Oh,
that's why these guys are in short sleeves and stuff like that. They put Vaseline and basically holds in all the heat or whatever, and I guess it really works.
Well, there you go.
You guys don't have to do it out there, but we might do it today.
Yeah. So put that on when you go out for a walk with your shorts on today. So have a good one, Dan, my friend. Take care.
Man. Thanks for having me. Have a great week, bud. Later.